So imagine, if you will, that Douglas Adams,
Oh, boy.
right, the undisputed master of absurd intergalactic comedy. Imagine if he was suddenly tasked with writing a gritty superhero origin story.
That is quite the visual.
Picture the collision of those two worlds. You would have the standard high-stakes supernatural drama and the flashy powers, sure, but all of that grandiosity would be constantly undercut by the mundane, the ridiculous, and the downright hilarious.
I mean, it really sets a tone.
It does. And welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. We are thrilled you are here with us because today we are unpacking the opening chapters of a wildly unique indie self-published Amazon Kindle series called The Legend of the Feral Saint Book 1.
It really is a fascinating piece of source material. And what makes this deep dive so compelling for you, the listener, is the sheer level of creative control at play here.
Yeah.
The author, Anthony Miracho, is a true multi-hyphenate. He didn't just write and independently publish this book, he actually designed the cover himself.
But that cover's pretty sick.
It is.
It's a great visual hook. But our mission today is to get past the cover and really sink our teeth into the mechanics of this universe.
Right.
Because here is where it gets really interesting. We are going to explore how this story brilliantly balances an aggressively sarcastic, irreverent tone with deeply grounded, genuine human trauma. It creates a narrative voice that is entirely its own.
It's a vital balance to strike. You know, if we look at the broader media landscape right now, you see a sea of cookie-cutter sci-fi and fantasy tropes.
Oh, absolutely.
The market is completely saturated with chosen ones and solemn destinies. So understanding how a writer uses humor to make extreme trauma and high-concept sci-fi not just digestible, but actively enjoyable, that is a masterclass in storytelling. We are looking at how a narrative takes the darkest elements of human survival and filters them through a lens of dark comedy.
Okay, let's unpack this right from the start. We're introduced to our protagonist, James. Now, James is a 12-year-old orphan, but he isn't your standard plucky, gee whiz, I hope I find a family kind of orphan.
Not at all.
No, James has firmly concluded that his status in life is essentially being the universe's personal punching bag.
Which is such a great phrase.
It is. His childhood is specifically described as being less Harry Potter and more Final Destination early years.
That specific comparison is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
So much.
It immediately recontextualizes the orphan trope. It strips away any illusion of magical whimsy and replaces it with a terrifying level of ambient, inescapable danger.
Exactly. Imagine you are a kid, and your daily existence feels less like discovering a magical destiny, and more like dodging a series of increasingly elaborate, lethal traps set by the universe itself.
It's bleak.
And we see the danger manifest physically right away.
Yeah.
James ends up with a broken arm.
Right. And here's where we have to stop and analyze what is actually happening. Most 12-year-olds with a compound fracture would be in a hospital.
Yeah, crying.
Surrounded by doctors, nurses, sympathetic parents. James sets his own broken arm using nothing but a textbook and a frayed belt.
Wait, hold on. A textbook and a frayed belt. At 12 years old, I couldn't even remember to feed my goldfish at 12, let alone casually perform orthopedic bone setting on myself in the woods.
It's intense.
That shifts him from a sympathetic underdog to someone with a borderline sociopathic pain tolerance, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, and it forces you to reevaluate his character immediately. To perform that kind of brutal, primitive medical procedure on yourself at that age establishes James as either incredibly resourceful or as someone who has been so fundamentally broken by his environment that his threshold for suffering is off the charts.
Or both.
It's a terrifying combination of both. It shows you that his psychological endurance is already superhuman before the sci-fi elements even begin.
So James realizes human society isn't working out for him, and he vanishes. He escapes into a forest called the Murkwood.
Yes.
And the descriptive language here is just gold. The Murkwood is so dense and beast-ridden that even the local squirrels pack switchblades.
It's a brilliant, highly stylized way to describe a hostile environment.
I want to live in a world where squirrels have tiny little switchblades. I really do.
I'm not sure you'd survive very long.
Fair point. But he goes into this terrifying, heavily armed rodent forest, and he disappears for a full 5 years. 5 years, a child is missing.
A long time.
And how does the world react? His absence is treated with roughly the same concern as a missing sock.
No, I'd argue that line is actually a massive risk by the author. Think about the reality of that situation.
Yeah.
The absolute indifference of society to a vulnerable missing child is profoundly sad. If you lean too hard into the comedy there, you risk alienating the reader from the child's actual suffering. You risk turning a tragedy into a cheap punchline.
But it works. It sneaks the tragedy right past your defenses. Why a missing sock? Why not a lost dog or a misplaced wallet?
Because of the disposability.
Right. Because a sock is mildly annoying for about 3 seconds, and then you just throw out the match and completely forget it ever existed. It's the perfect metaphor for total societal neglect.
Exactly. It's dark, twisted humor that forces you to laugh at something horrific, which actually makes the underlying tragedy more digestible.
So true.
Fast forward those 5 years, and James is still surviving. Still the universe's punching bag. This leads us to a remarkably chaotic sequence. James is desperately trying to steal some bread, just basic primal survival. But things go sideways, and he ends up being chased by guard dogs.
But not just any dogs. These are the Hounds of Hell's Bakery.
Quite the title.
I am personally picturing a terrifying demonic poodle wearing a little white chef's hat, foaming at the mouth.
Regardless of their canine culinary attire, the situation is dire. James is sprinting for his life back toward the Murkwood. The dogs are snapping at his heels, and he gets cornered.
Oh, no.
He is trapped on the edge of a steep cliff. He raises his hands to defend himself, loses his footing, and falls.
And this is the moment that completely caught me off guard. You're bracing for this frantic, flailing panic as he plummets to his death.
Right. We need to slow the narrative down here and look at James's internal reaction. As he's falling, he doesn't feel terror. He doesn't panic.
No.
His internal monologue is simply, fine, whatever. At least I get to rest. No more hurting.
Oof. That was a gut punch.
It is incredibly heavy. The author takes all that aggressive sarcasm we've been discussing, all the switchblade squirrels and demonic bakers, and just drops it for a second. It grounds the sheer absurdity of the story in genuine emotional weight, the exhaustion of this kid, the absolute weariness of just trying to stay alive every single day. It's palpable. You feel the weight of his trauma right there in the air with him.
You really do. You're feeling this deep empathy for this exhausted kid bracing for a tragic, bone-shattering end at the bottom of a ravine.
Right.
And then
Here it comes.
the narrative violently pivots right back to comedy. Because James does not hit the ground with a splat. You're expecting a tragedy, and instead, he hits the ground with a GLRP.
A glorp.
He literally glorps. What even is a glorp?
It's very evocative.
It's such an incredibly undignified, cartoonish sound effect to follow up a profound acceptance of death.
In literary terms, that is a textbook example of bathos, an abrupt transition from an elevated emotional style to the ridiculous or mundane. It completely shatters the tension.
Completely.
He doesn't hit rocks. He falls directly into a pool of shimmering, electric, neon blue goo. It's described as falling into a Tesla coil's bubble bath.
Which paints this incredibly vivid, buzzing, energetic picture. But he doesn't just splash in and pull himself out. He stays there. He marinates in this electric blue goo for 3 years.
3 years?
3 years. It's a cosmic slow cooker. He is just submerged, stewing in this glowing Tesla bath.
And the rebirth that follows is a complete subversion of the standard superhero glow-up. When the universe finally decides it's time to pull him out, the narrative simply states that James was done.
Like a Sunday roast. Like a rotisserie chicken. The universe pokes him with a cosmic thermometer and says, yep, he's done, pull him out. And the physical transformation is absurd. He emerges from the goo, and the descriptions of his new body are dripping with sarcasm. He looks like a sculpture that forgot to put on clothes.
The specificity of the physical descriptions is what makes it land so well.
His muscles look like they'd been drafted by a dramatic cartographer.
Right.
He has a jawline that could cut glass. Ultimately, he's a biological masterpiece designed to cause marital chaos and prompt sudden investments in gym memberships.
The narrative is fully self-aware of how ridiculous it is to have a scrawny, malnourished kid suddenly become outrageously attractive and superpowered, so it leans heavily into the comedy of vanity.
It definitely does.
But it immediately introduces a massive consequence. With those new muscles comes a crippling psychological problem.
Oh, a massive problem. Because James wakes up and his senses are absolutely wrecked. He is immediately subjected to the world's worst concert. Everything is dialed up to 11,000.
The sensory overload he experiences is profound. Imagine opening your eyes and suddenly processing an unfathomable volume of data.
It sounds awful.
He can see a bee from 100 yards away, but he doesn't just see a dot. He can see that this specific bee is having a midlife crisis.
That is so funny.
He can count the individual hairs on its legs. He hears the frantic, tiny whoop, whoop, whoop of its wings beating.
I love the personification there. A bee having a midlife crisis. But it doesn't stop. He can hear a pebble tumbling in a stream 3 miles away. He can hear a worm, and it's just brilliant. He can hear a worm having a difficult Tuesday underground.
Just a Tuesday.
Imagine actually hearing the nuanced struggles of an invertebrate's work week.
It's hilarious, but it's also a terrifying amount of stimulus for a human brain to process.
And the icing on the sensory overload cake is what he hears coming from the trees. He hears the distant, judgmental gossip of tree squirrels. I am officially obsessed with the concept of squirrel society in this universe.
It adds a whole new layer to the Murkwood.
You just know. These squirrels are sitting up in their branches looking down at James and talking trash. Oh, look at this guy falling into the neon glowy stuff, marinating for 3 years. So gauche. No class at all. The squirrels are mean.
They are brutally judgmental. But if we look at the writing craft here, there is something deeply structural happening beneath the squirrel gossip.
Oh.
How does a human mind survive that level of supernatural sensory overload without completely snapping?
Yeah. How does he not just lose his mind?
The narrative explains that James manages to survive this by mentally building a dam. And what does he use to build that mental dam? His past. He uses his traumatic childhood as mental calluses.
Wait, so he's weaponizing his own misery to stay sane?
Precisely. This is where the story elevates itself. The trauma of being the universe's punching bag, the broken arm, the starvation, it wasn't just included for the sake of a tragic backstory to make us feel bad for him. It was a structural setup. It becomes the literal functional mechanism for his survival in this new state. Because he is so used to enduring unbearable pain and blocking out horrific circumstances, he knows exactly how to compartmentalize and wall off this new, overwhelming input.
That is incredibly clever writing. It ties his psychological history directly to his new physical reality. He couldn't survive being a superhero if he hadn't first survived being a victim.
It mirrors real-world psychological compartmentalization, where individuals who experience severe trauma learn to sever their emotional connection to their physical reality just to endure it.
That makes total sense.
Here, that trauma response is the only thing keeping his brain from liquefying under the weight of his supersenses.
So he manages to build this mental dam. He blocks out the judgy squirrels and the stressed out worms. But then a very basic primal human instinct kicks in, cutting through all the cosmic noise. His stomach commands him to eat. He hasn't eaten in 3 years.
Right. The cosmic slow cooker apparently didn't provide any actual nutritional sustenance.
So he looks out. He sees a fish in the water about 30 meters away. His brain says food, and suddenly he just goes.
He moves.
He either super speeds or teleports. It's left a bit ambiguous, but 1 second he's on a rock, and the very next second he is crouched at the water's edge, holding this fish in his bare hand.
And the interaction with the fish is another great moment of anticlimax.
It's so awkward. He's holding the fish is looking at him, and they just stare at each other, both of them equally confused about how this geographic relocation just happened.
Frozen.
Finally, James just drops it. It plops back into the water, and you just know that fish is swimming back to his friends to start a religion. It's going to form a cult about the silver hand of the sky descending from the heavens.
Most likely.
That fish is destined for its own spin-off novel, I'm calling it right now. The Fish Who Saw Death.
A compelling side story, to be sure. But this moment of failed hunting isn't just a joke. It triggers the next major crisis for James.
Right.
This is where the true conflict of his new existence hits him. It's referred to as the neural revolt.
Yeah, the sensory stuff was just the appetizer. Now the pain really hits as his brain is suddenly flooded with cosmic, universe-level information.
The specifics of what is downloading into his mind are mind-bending. He is suddenly seeing equations for materials that do not even exist yet.
It's popping into his head.
Exactly. He's visualizing biological schematics of creatures that completely defy taxonomy. He is processing theories of gravity that make regular gravity look lazy.
Lazy gravity. But here is the ultimate irony, the real crux of James's situation.
Yes. James is a feral orphan who has lived in the woods. He has never been to school.
Never.
So all of this infinite godlike knowledge, to him, it is pure brain-splitting noise. He lacks the fundamental framework to comprehend any of it.
It's tragic, really.
It's described perfectly as a library of the future being dumped into a skull that just wanted to know how to cook a fish.
Which makes his newfound power completely useless in the short term. It's practically an ironic punishment. He has the answers to the cosmos, but he doesn't even know what math is. You have the blueprints to existence, but the monitor is off and the keyboard is in Greek.
It creates a fantastic tension. The disparity between the absolute power of the knowledge he possesses and his complete inability to utilize it. It's a deeply isolating experience for the character.
So his brain is on fire with the literal secrets of the universe. He's overwhelmed, he's in pain. He ends up just floating in a pool of water, staring up at the stars, trying to process this massive neural revolt.
Just trying to cope.
Eventually, he paddles back to the shore. And amidst all this cosmic weirdness, all these equations and alien biology flashing through his mind, his dominant thought breaks through.
It all comes back to the foundation of the character.
It does. His dominant overriding thought is simply dinner. He's still just hungry. The guy just got cosmic superpowers, future knowledge beamed into his brain, a body that belongs in a Greek museum, and his main priority is still just figuring out where his next meal is coming from.
And that leads to the closing line of the chapter, which perfectly encapsulates the entire tone we've been dissecting today. The mysteries of cosmic evolution could wait. Dinner could not.
It is brilliant pacing. It's the perfect punchline to all this madness.
If we synthesize everything we've looked at in this deep dive, it connects back to how we, as an audience, experience and relate to media.
Absolutely.
The absolute best humor, the kind that really resonates and sticks with you, almost always stems from a place of deep humanity and a core instinct for survival. What the author did here was take a classic, almost tired trope, the sudden acquisition of godlike powers, and completely subverted our expectations by making the protagonist care vastly more about his basic human needs than his newfound godhood.
It makes him so relatable. You just want to hang out with him, even if he is a walking universe brain who looks like a fitness model.
It's a very human reaction.
It's been an absolute blast unpacking this with you all today. And just imagine what comes next in this series. You've got this completely uneducated guy wandering around with the blueprints to reality in his head. How on earth does he function in society?
I can't even begin to guess.
Is he going to accidentally invent cold fusion while trying to make a toaster? Does he think gravity is optional now?
The potential for comedic and dramatic situations is immense. But before we go, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to chew on.
Let's hear it.
Something that builds on the psychology we've discussed today. We talked about how James survived the overwhelming power of the universe by building a mental dam out of his own childhood trauma. He had to weaponize his suffering and numb himself just to endure his new reality. It makes you wonder, if you were suddenly downloaded with the absolute, unfathomable blueprints of the universe, but lacked the foundational education to understand a single drop of it, how would you begin to translate that cosmic noise?
That's a huge question.
And if surviving ultimate godlike power requires you to shut down your emotional vulnerability and rely entirely on the calluses of your past trauma, at what point does that power cost you your humanity? Would that ultimate knowledge actually be a superpower, or just an isolating prison of noise?
Oof. That is a heavy question to ponder while you're making your own dinner tonight. Are our traumas our superpowers, or just the things keeping us from being fully human?
Yeah, something to think about.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll leave you with that thought, and we hope you never have to deal with judgmental squirrels. Keep reading, keep wondering, and we will catch you next time.